I knew dinner was going south the second Denise brought out the asparagus tongs. No one needs tongs for 5 stalks, unless you're staging a photo shoot or planning a silent protest. Lauren leaned into my side like she always did, when her mom was about to say something fake nice. My name's Caleb Morton. I'm 28, married to Lauren for almost 2 years, and I've been eating Sunday dinners at her parents' place long enough to know where the landmines are. Denise Aldridge, queen of white-on-white napkin folding, shot me a smile with just enough teeth to qualify as polite. Caleb, would you like a slice of the rosemary focaccia? It's from that artisan bakery in Franklin Hills, the one with real olive oil. Greg, her husband, sat across from me, quietly calculating something on his phone, probably checking if the chicken dinner fit in the weekly budget or if I looked like a bad investment. I nodded, passed the bread down, and stayed quiet. I knew better than to talk about what I did for work. Her mom already hated my ports and events explanation. I said it once and she blinked at me like I'd said, freelance magician. Truth is, my family owns Meridian Star Voyages. My dad, Richard, started it with one charter boat and built it into one of the most respected private cruise lines in the region. But he raised me to earn my spot from the bottom, not ride the name like a surfboard. So I didn't lead with it. I worked every job from linens to logistics, and I kept my mouth shut. Denise couldn't stand not knowing. A few months in, she started sending Lauren links to boutique PR firms, hiring real professionals, underlining sentences about salary ranges. I'd laugh it off, but Lauren's hand would find my knee under the table every time. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. And let's continue. We met 4 years ago at a coastal cleanup my company sponsored. She was there repping a nonprofit in hiking boots and a ponytail, clipboard in hand. I carried water jugs and hauled full trash bags without saying a word. She liked that. Said I wasn't the kind of guy who turns charity into content. She never asked about job titles. Just wanted to know if I could show up, be solid, and not make a mess. That stuck. But Denise? She sniffed me out the first month. Asked if I had a real plan. Like scrubbing deck chairs and coordinating vendor schedules wasn't enough unless there was a corner office involved. Greg barely talked, but when the check came, his thumb hovered over that calculator app like it was a trigger. You could see it in his eyes, wondering if I had enough going on to support his daughter. Not that he asked, he just stared a lot. Still, I showed up, carried serving trays, cleared plates, and ate that cardboard dry chicken like it didn't taste like paper. I kept smiling through every backhanded comment about ambition, because Lauren was worth it, and maybe, just maybe, I thought keeping quiet would buy us peace. Instead, all it bought was more Sundays like this one. My dad, Richard Morton, always ran Meridian Star like it was a corner shop with ocean views. No layers of middle management, no high-polished showpieces, just service, sweat, and structure. If the crew needed help, he rolled up his sleeves. If the guests complained, he showed up with a clipboard, not a PR shield. When I turned 20, he handed me a mop and dropped me into overnight cleaning. Not a shadowing gig, not a trial shift. 2 full months of toilet scrubbing and hallway buffing with a supervisor named Lionel who only called me Kid. No one knew my last name, but payroll. That was the point. I learned fast, not just the work, but the code behind it. That if a towel's folded wrong, it might screw up a couple's anniversary. That if a crew member gets thanked by name, they float for the next week. And that no one cares what family you're from when you're elbow deep in mildew and late checkouts. After that, I rotated through provisioning, then front-end guest services. Spent 6 months getting chewed out over filet mignon temperatures and curtain cords that didn't close all the way. A woman once told me her vacation was ruined because her robe wasn't fluffy enough. I apologized and meant it, because the robe wasn't the issue. She just wanted to feel seen. That stuck with me. The rule from my dad stayed simple. Never lead with who you are. Let your work introduce you. If people find out later, fine. But if they treat you different after that, you already know what they're about. Then came the cleanup. It was one of our coastal events. Low media, small turnout. I was moving cases of water from the truck when I saw her. Lauren, clipboard in one hand, duct tape in the other, arguing with a broken pop-up tent like it had insulted her in public. She had this smudge of sunscreen across her nose and didn't seem to care at all. She wasn't there to impress anyone. She was organizing volunteers, checking head counts, assigning groups. She didn't even glance at my uniform. Later, when a teenage kid pulled a turtle tangled in line out of the reeds, she dropped everything to stay with him until the rescue team arrived. That night, I asked her if she wanted to grab something to eat. She said she only had time for takeout and a trunk lid to sit on, so that's what we did. 2 tacos, a warm soda, and no job talk except her venting about donors who only showed up for photo ops. We made it work, her galas, my ship schedules, 2 lives always running just out of sync. We had more dinners in parking lots than restaurants, and we never once argued about it. I proposed under a pier in Santa Cruz. It was just past sunset, gulls screaming like they were rooting for us, and my fingers shook so bad I nearly dropped the ring. I'd bought it with a couple bonuses and some leftover shore pay. She said yes before I could even finish the question. We kept the wedding small, a private cove my dad used to take us to when I was a kid. 15 people, 0 drama. We told Denise and Greg it was just a random public beach spot. No reason to dig into the family connection. Simpler that way. Denise called it quaint, then pulled Lauren aside and said a ballroom would have elevated the narrative, like marriage was a marketing campaign. I kept quiet. I figured they'd come around eventually, that once they saw us together long enough, they'd get it. So we gave it time. We played nice. We kept secrets. Our wedding had 15 people. 1 rented speaker that cut out if someone stepped too close, and a neighbor from down the road who sang off key because she meant every word. The wind kept tugging at the chairs, and the water slapped the rocks like it was clapping early. It felt right to me, like something honest that didn't need polishing. Denise showed up in a sequined wrap that caught the sun and threw it back at everyone. She leaned in before the ceremony even started and asked, "Is there a premium champagne option, or is this the only choice?" She said it like the ocean breeze wasn't already doing half the work. I told her we had what we had and kept moving. Greg hovered near me while people settled in, scrolling a tide chart on his phone. He said, "Married life comes with surprise expenses," like it was a warning label and not a fact of being alive. I smiled and nodded because it wasn't the day to explain balance sheets or the difference between risk and fear. During the toast, my best man took 1 step back, slipped on the sand, and went down hard. He popped up laughing before anyone could panic, brushed sand off his jeans, and finished his speech with grit in his teeth. We laughed and clapped and kept going, because that's how things work at the waterline. After the ceremony, Denise pulled Lauren aside near the cooler. I watched from a few feet away as her mouth tightened and then smoothed back into that public smile. Denise glanced at me and said, "I was just asking if his folks couldn't afford more." It's a joke. The words landed anyway, sharp and clean. Lauren breathed through it like she always did. She came back to me, leaned her head on my shoulder, and we ate cupcakes straight out of the cooler with plastic forks. The frosting melted fast, and I wiped it off her thumb with my napkin. My parents didn't say much. They hugged us, helped stack chairs, and packed up trash like it was just another family afternoon. Later, while loading the speaker, Dad said, "Folks who chase shiny things forget to look at the person holding the light." He said it once and went back to work. We started married life in a modest apartment near the marina. The balcony view was mostly seagulls, fighting over scraps and cranes, swinging steel like slow dancers. It smelled like salt and diesel, and I loved it. Denise called it transitional, like we were waiting to become acceptable. I kept my rotations. I learned scheduling software that froze at the worst times and took calls about cabin temperatures I didn't set. I fixed problems I didn't cause and logged notes no one read twice. That was fine. Work was clean. Denise sent Lauren listings for larger rentals, closer to the right schools, even though kids weren't on our timeline yet. We laughed about it at night, set alarms for early shifts, and rolled toward the week like we meant it, hitting the buttons together and getting up. We kept moving through it, work, bills, early alarms, but the little digs didn't stop. Over the next year and a half, Denise sharpened her delivery. She could fit a full insult inside a smile and a handshake. One night over dinner, while pouring herself a 3rd glass of Pinot, she looked at me and said, "Some men just need a nudge to level up," like she was doing me a favor by pointing it out. 2 weeks later, I got a catalog in the mail. High-end suits, shiny cufflinks, Italian shoes. Inside was a sticky note with her handwriting. "Invest in appearances. They open doors." As if a blazer would do what work ethic couldn't. I didn't bother responding. We were still living out of that apartment by the marina. We had a working sink, a good mattress, and a shared calendar that barely made room for a Saturday off. None of it needed gloss. Denise started tagging Lauren in these articles and posts about power couples and signature lifestyle moments. Two smiling people in branded kitchens drinking green juice under perfect light fixtures. Meanwhile, we ate rice bowls on the couch and sent each other side-eye glances across the table. While she pushed image, I pushed coral restoration. I worked with our environmental team on a new partnership building underwater nurseries off a battered coastline down south. It wasn't glamorous. It involved long conference calls, ugly grant language, and meeting crews with dive gear and sunburns. But it mattered. One Sunday, I heard Denise whisper to Greg while clearing plates, "It's all PR fluff, isn't it? Makes him feel important." She didn't think I caught it, but I did. I didn't say a word. I wasn't going to argue with someone who thought legacy came with hashtags. Greg didn't take shots often, but when he did, he went practical. "Have you looked into long-term planning?" he asked one night while refilling his water glass. "A corporate ladder with steps, not a boat with waves." His voice didn't rise, but the judgment landed. Lauren started taking the smaller visits, drop-ins, coffee invites, last-minute, "can you help me with the garage" days. I kept the big dinners. We traded off like teammates, compared notes after. "She asked about your credit score again," Lauren would say. "She sent me real estate flyers during dessert," I'd tell her. We started treating it like recon work, less emotional, more tactical. For Denise's birthday, I gave her a book on local history, well-researched, signed by the author, something thoughtful. She smiled, said thanks, then slid a brochure across the table. "You know, this designer makes incredible watches." Would really complete the look. When Lauren got promoted, development director at her nonprofit, Denise sent her flowers with a note that said, "Congratulations. Perhaps now an upgraded living situation is in order." Like square footage validated progress. My dad, on the other hand, just said, "Proud of you both. You two keep showing up." He didn't ask what our place looked like. He asked if we were still eating dinner together and getting enough sleep. The more Denise pressed, the quieter I got. Not because I didn't have something to say, but because I didn't want to waste breath on defending a life I was proud to build. Lauren told me, "Hang on, we're not here to blow anything up. We're here to outlast it." And she meant it. I believed her, not because it sounded right, but because she'd earned that kind of faith from me. So I held. We held. Quiet, steady, waiting for the moment that would finally push things past the edge. 2 Sundays ago, we walked into Denise and Greg's place and found name cards set at the table like it was some gola for 6 instead of a family dinner. The table runner had a metallic shine, and the salad plates were already preset, with exactly 5 arugula leaves each. There was a menu card too, serif font, laminated. Kelsey looked like she'd swallowed a bad secret. She kept fiddling with the edge of her napkin, folding and unfolding it like she was bracing for fallout. Greg had a red folder tucked under his chair and was checking his watch even before we sat down. Denise waited until the roast was on the table. She tapped her fork against her glass. Not enough to make a real noise, just enough to signal that whatever was coming next would be rehearsed. "Family announcement," she said, smiling like she was hosting a press conference instead of serving dinner. Her voice had that fake bright tone she used when she'd spent too long crafting the delivery. She pointed at the centerpiece, tiny paper cruise ship stuck on toothpicks in between the candles. "We're taking a luxury voyage." I looked at Lauren. She looked at me. Neither of us blinked. We knew. Denise kept going. "We booked Meridian Star's Mediterranean Passage. The owner's suite, of course. It's the top tier, very selective." I felt my neck heat up, slow and steady. I knew that exact itinerary. I'd approved the layout change on that suite 6 months back, signed off on the linens, tested the water pressure. I could tell you the fabric on the headboard because I helped choose it. Denise added, "It's in 6 weeks. We want this to be a special time for immediate family. You understand?" Lauren's hand found my arm under the table. Kelsey stared at her plate like it might let her disappear. Greg drank his water like it had the answer to a question he didn't want to ask out loud. Lauren spoke, even and clear. "Are you uninviting my husband?" Denise tilted her head and gave a smile I couldn't return even if I wanted to. "Don't be dramatic, dear. He was never really included. He can find a more suitable trip." That hit different. I've taken plenty of blows, some deserved, some not. But that one hit dead center. like she'd been holding on to it for months and finally gave herself permission to cut deep. I didn't speak. Not right then. I just let it hang. Lauren sat up straighter. You booked a cruise on his family's line and decided he doesn't belong? Kelsey muttered something, but Denise ignored it. We paid full fare. This has nothing to do with business. It's a private trip. On a ship his family owns, Lauren said. In the suite he helped design. Greg cleared his throat like he wanted to say something, then didn't. He looked down, pulled the red folder closer to his leg, and said, It was Denise's idea. No one touched their food. I sat there, hands in my lap, jaw tight, listening to the sound of a roast cooling under untouched gravy. I wasn't humiliated. I was focused. Denise had crossed a line, but she didn't know which one yet. Kelsey stood to take her plate to the kitchen, then stopped halfway. This isn't right, she said, not loud, just honest. She sat back down. No one followed her lead. Lauren leaned in toward me. Do we eat or do we go? I shook my head once. We wait. I already knew what I was going to do, and I wasn't going to raise my voice to do it. I didn't raise my voice, didn't slam my hand on the table. I just pulled out my phone, placed it screen up next to the centerpiece, and unlocked it with one tap. My thumb hovered for half a second, then hit Dad's contact. I wasn't trying to make a scene. I was just done pretending that silence was grace, done acting like her stabs didn't bleed. I'd let her stack her story high enough. Now it was time to pull out a corner block and watch it tilt. You're right, I said, calm as ever. I do have options in the cruise world. Greg looked up. Denise tilted her head like she hadn't heard me right. Lauren didn't move, but her fingers tightened around my wrist. The phone rang twice. Then, Morton guest office, my dad said. That was always how he answered, even though his name was the one printed on every executive document from Florida to Greece. Hey, Dad. Quick thing about the Aldridge booking for the Mediterranean. Departure on the 14th. Owner's suite. Dead silence around the table. I could feel Denise freeze in place. Greg leaned back like something had just gone off in his ear. Kelsey went completely still. Go ahead, Dad said, voice steady like he already knew what this was. We need to free that suite. There's been a misunderstanding about who counts as family. Denise's face dropped. The smugness fell right off her cheekbones. Understood, Dad replied. I'll have the deposit returned today. Anything else? Yeah, I said. Flag that week for family use. No bookings. Done. See you 8 a.m. for ops review. I'll be there. Lauren didn't let go of my sleeve. Kelsey looked from her plate to the phone like someone had just flipped her entire world upside down. Greg slowly reached for his glass and missed it on the first try. Denise's voice finally crept out, small and unsteady. Dad? I looked her dead in the eye. Richard Morton, Meridian Star Voyages. I handle guest experience and environmental partnerships. She blinked like I'd spoken a language she didn't know. Her eyes darted to Greg, then to Lauren, then back to me. That suite is our family's, I added, still even. We keep it for actual family. Denise stood so fast her chair scraped hard against the tile. She didn't say another word, just turned and walked upstairs like the room had gone cold. Nobody moved for a beat. Kelsey looked half a breath from tears. Greg rubbed the bridge of his nose and muttered, Good grief. Lauren finally spoke. You've been quiet for 1.5 years. I looked at her and said, I was waiting for the line to get crossed. And it's crossed. She nodded once, then stood. Kelsey reached for the red folder under Greg's chair and slid it toward me. I didn't know, she said. I swear, I didn't know she left you off the guest list. I believe you, I said. But she knew. That's what matters. Greg looked at the folder like it might explode. She said she wanted to surprise the girls with something big, something elegant. You don't surprise people with exclusion, Greg, Lauren snapped. You warn them. Or better yet, you don't do it at all. He nodded, slow. You're right. I stood too. Picked up the phone, ended the call, and slid it back into my pocket. The name cards on the table looked ridiculous now, like props in a play that had been canceled mid-scene. No one touched the roast. Denise didn't come back down. Upstairs, doors opened and closed hard. Then came the sound of fast dialing, shoes on carpet, a voice behind a closed door, low and frantic. I pictured a group chat unraveling in real time. One ring at a time, her version of the story was probably already out there. Back at the table, no one touched the food. Greg cleared his throat, stood halfway, and sat back down. He tried to say something but stopped himself. Then he said, "I'm sorry." Waited. "I didn't know she booked that suite without telling us everything." A pause. "I'm sorry again." The third one came out quieter. No defense, just a man shrinking in his own tie. Kelsey leaned forward, elbows on the edge of the table, like she was holding it together by force. "Can I help somehow?" she asked, her voice cracked halfway through. "I didn't think she'd—" "You didn't do this," I said. "I didn't cancel the whole trip, just the suite. Because I'm not in the business of burning bridges unless there's no wood left to build something better." Lauren watched me, but didn't speak. She didn't have to. I looked at Greg. "But something changes. This family thing, it goes both ways now." He nodded once, tight and slow, like he was seeing his own reflection clearly for the first time. "You're right," he said. "We've been measuring things that don't count." I said, "Here's what I want going forward. No more digs. No more games. You don't have to like me, but you will respect Lauren and me as a unit. We are not on trial every time we sit at this table." Kelsey exhaled hard through her nose, then muttered, "She's been worse lately. I don't know what flipped." She shook her head. "It's like she's scared of being left behind, but keeps making it worse." That tracked. It didn't excuse anything, but it made sense. Lauren reached around my back and wrapped her arm across my shoulders. She leaned in and said, "We can go. You did what needed to be done." I looked at the plates. "No, we'll eat, then we'll go." Adults finished the meal. The roast had gone lukewarm. The gravy had stiffened. Those little paper ships Denise had planted in the centerpiece were starting to sag under the heat of the candles, curling at the edges like they were giving up. But we sat there, cutting slow bites and chewing in silence. No one asked for seconds. Denise never came back down. When we finally stood, we didn't slam our chairs in or make a scene. We grabbed our jackets from the coat rack and headed for the door. Greg followed us to the porch. The wind had picked up just enough to rattle the shutters. "I knew better," he said, "and I let it slide. That won't happen again." Lauren gave him a nod. Not a soft one, just a solid final nod that meant we'd see what he did next. We walked to the car in silence. The only sounds were our footsteps on the pavement and the echo of that upstairs door slamming earlier. Inside the car, Lauren buckled in, looked at me and said, "You didn't humiliate her. You just turned on the lights." I stared straight ahead for a second, then said, "I wasn't aiming for revenge. I just wanted the boundary lines painted in bright yellow, something even she can't pretend not to see." Lauren reached over and took my hand. "Well, mission accomplished." And we drove home with nothing left to explain. The first text came 2 days later. Denise sent Lauren a link to an article about coral restoration efforts in the Keys, followed by a message that just said, "Impressive program. Does Meridian Star do something like this?" I almost laughed, but Lauren just raised an eyebrow and said, "I think this is her version of waving a white flag." I let it sit. Next day, another message came through, this one about sustainable tourism. She asked, "Do you guys use biodegradable straws on board?" Every message came with that same 2-word signature. Impressive program. Like she was trying to learn how to say please and thank you at 56 and didn't quite trust her own voice yet. Greg called a few days after that. His tone was careful, like he was walking a tightrope with no net. "Is the booking still alive?" he asked. "Yes," I told him. "But the suite's on hold for us until we see real change. Not a PR stunt, actual change." "We understand," he said. Then he paused. "We're working on it." A week later, we got invited to coffee. Not dinner, not Sunday lunch with place cards, just coffee. No centerpiece, no hidden agenda that we could see. We went. Denise wore flats and brought a notebook. Not a designer clutch, an actual spiral notebook from a drugstore. She listened while Lauren talked about her latest grant project. Even asked follow-ups. Nothing big, but she stayed present. That was new. At one point, she started to drop a celebrity name, some foundation chair she knew, but stopped herself mid-sentence. "That doesn't matter here," she said quietly. I nodded. "It really doesn't." She looked down at her coffee and said, "I've been trying to make things look right from the outside, and I used you both like a step stool to do it. That line about immediate family, I regret it. I really do." It wasn't polished. There was no speech, no tears, just a pause. And for once, No excuses. I believed her. Not because the words were perfect, but because they weren't. They landed clumsy and real. Later that night, Lauren looked at me and said, "I think she means it." "She's trying," I said. "Trying's enough, for now." We didn't reopen the owner's suite. That wasn't the win. Instead, we restored the booking with the top-tier family package, connecting cabins, full access, no showboating. It was a better fit, symbolically and practically. When Denise got the confirmation, she replied with a simple, "Thank you." No modifiers, not "so grateful" or "truly honored." Just the words. That alone was progress. Kelsey reached out a day later, asking if we had summer internships with our environmental team. Said she wanted to learn what it really took to make those programs happen. I sent her the application link and told her the timeline straight up. 8 weeks, paid stipend, no special treatment. She didn't ask for any. That night, Lauren pulled out the old wall calendar we kept near the fridge and circled the departure date in blue ink. No gold stars, no glitter pens. Just one circle, clean and neat. We didn't say much. We just looked at it, then went back to folding laundry. 6 weeks later, we boarded in Barcelona with 2 linked cabins and a simple goal: eat more than we argued, no fanfare. Just a cruise, a family, and a shot at doing this thing right. The crew recognized me, nodded as we passed. No salutes, no scrambling, just quiet smiles like we were neighbors again. One of the stewards gave me a thumbs up when he saw Lauren and said, "Glad to have you aboard, sir." I told him, "You don't have to call me sir." And he grinned. That's why I said it. First night, the captain invited us to his table. Just a quiet gesture, no microphone announcements, no spotlight. "Dad sent a note to our cabin. Congrats on the turnaround. Proud of how you handled it." That was it. No exclamation marks, just him. Denise didn't dress like she was hosting a gala. She wore flat shoes and a linen top that didn't scream for attention. She watched the staff, how they moved, how they joked with each other, and halfway through the meal, she leaned toward Greg and said, "They actually like it here." Not sarcastic, just surprised. Greg loosened up after dinner when the ship band played a medley of 70s hits. When Sweet Caroline came on, he clapped along, then sang so loud he startled himself and laughed like he hadn't in months. Kelsey signed up for a shadow day with the marine science team. She came back sunburned, hair tied in a messy bun, eyes glowing. She pulled us aside that evening, talking a mile a minute about ocean acidity and reef regrowth percentages. She didn't even finish her dessert. Later, I heard her talking to a couple at the railing. This restoration work they do, it's not some PR campaign. It's the heart of the whole program. The couple nodded along. She didn't even notice me standing nearby. Lauren leaned against me on the upper deck after sunset. Wind in her hair, soft hum of the sea below. She said, "This is better than I thought it would be." I didn't answer right away, just pulled her a little closer. At dinner the next night, she caught herself mid-sentence about someone she used to work with, a name drop hanging on the tip of her tongue. She stopped, blinked once, and let the moment pass. Afterward, she found a cabin attendant who'd fixed our door latch earlier and thanked him by name. No speech, just thanks. Then moved on. I told her quietly, "We're good as long as the respect stays when we hit port." She nodded. "It will." We took a few photos during the trip, one on the deck at golden hour, one with Kelsey holding a lab clipboard, and one at dinner where no one posed. We didn't post any of them. They went on the fridge back home. That was enough. I slept better that week than I had in a year and a half. Not because everything was perfect, but because I didn't feel like I had to guard anything. The sea does that for me, wipes the board clean, doesn't ask permission. Half a year later, dinners at Denise's were simple now. Fewer place cards, normal plates, and a gray cat that climbed onto the table, and nobody scolded. It felt earned, not staged, and nobody reached for their phone. Denise still slipped on brand names sometimes, then caught herself mid-sentence and asked Lauren about grants, timelines, and outcomes, like she was learning a new language. Greg no longer checked the bill with his eyes, though he still minded the budget and folded coupons with careful pride. Kelsey finished an 8-week internship with our environmental team, and on board, it was Mr. Morton, while on shore, it earned me an eye roll. Last Tuesday, Denise called and said a braggy friend booked a competitor with iffy labor practices and wanted advice. "Our line is better," she said, and the word "our" made me smile. I moved a few things quietly and got the friend onto a Meridian Star sailing, letting Denise think she had connections. That fall, we renamed the owner's suite the family suite in the books, adding chairs and removing the throne energy. Dad used our dinner story in training, with names removed, and told crews to treat every guest like they belonged. Denise overheard, laughed, said she deserved that, then asked the housekeeper how her day was going. That was my quiet payback, not a slam, but a pivot that held and kept holding. Now we were planning another trip where Greg wanted the golf simulator, Kelsey wanted the lab, and Lauren wanted a balcony nap. I still wanted what I wanted at the start, a table without tests where everyone could sit down. We ate dinner without clocks, talked about weather and work, and let silence sit without rushing to fill it, which felt like progress you could touch. Lauren reached for my hand under the table and squeezed once, a signal that said, "This was enough for tonight." After dishes, Greg packed leftovers, Kelsey argued about playlists, and Denise fed the cat, moving around the kitchen like it finally belonged to her. I grabbed my jacket, opened the door, and waited while Lauren locked up behind us. Outside, the air was cool and clean, and I felt the same steady calm I get before sunrise on deck. I started the car, checked the mirrors, and pulled away slow, choosing the long route home. At the stoplight, Lauren laughed about something small, and I reached over to turn the radio up, letting the song carry us forward. When the light changed, I pressed the gas and drove us home without looking back. The road opened, the house lights faded, and the night gave us room. I rolled the window down, breathed in, and kept moving. Ahead of us was nothing fancy, just distance and time. I turned onto our street, parked, and shut the engine off. We sat there, then opened the doors together. I stepped out first and walked toward the house with Lauren beside me. Quick gut check before we part. When someone draws a boundary that cuts you out, do you stand your ground like I did, or walk away to protect your peace? If you've got hype, please tap it to back this video and help it reach more people. Hit subscribe and like. It truly helps us and takes just one click. And drop a comment, even good story, or tell me what you do at that table.